This girl just made a brilliant video where she's talking about how it's a microaggression when a black person makes a video and then a white person commented, essentially correcting their grammar. And she used the example asked versus asked. And in the comments, we were discussing how, like, that line of thinking, the need to correct someone erases AAVE as, like, its own language. This other person really brilliantly pointed out that they will quickly do it in a black person's comment section, but they won't do it in, like, a European's comment section. And how this way of thinking doesn't account for regional accents and also, like, dialects, right? And how language is 100% made up. And what makes something true in a language is just how often people say it. Because in actuality, there is no right or wrong in language. What there actually is what people understand and what people don't understand. It doesn't matter how I say something. If you got to the root of the messaging of what I was trying to say, then I in fact did say it correctly. If you study linguistics, you know the one thing about linguistics is that it's all 100% made up. The only founding truth of it is that people understand you when you communicate. So if 500 years ago I pointed at a rock and I said bat, and I said bat 1,000,001 times, and everyone in my community started to understand that when I said bat, I was pointing at this stone object, and everyone else started calling it that as well. Guess what? Now the word bat is another word for this stoned object. It's made up. And it's so made up that historians believe that, like, a lot of Shakespeare, which we consider to be like the smartest person ever and the person who essentially invented like the known English language that we use today, that so much of what he said was made up shit that he heard the kids saying in the streets. It was just slang that suddenly became proper language because he used it in his literature. So linguistics as a tool is in fact not the same as mathematics. There is not a right or wrong answer because linguistics is always changing and evolving as humans evolve. As someone who has both a speech impediment and then also English is my second language, I often mispronounce things, right? And it drives me insane when someone comments under my comment section and be like, that's not how you say that. I actually didn't ask you for help. I didn't. Did you understand the messaging of the video, regardless of whether I mispronounced it or not? You did? That's all that matters. And the reason why it annoys me so badly is because it's never really coming from a genuine place. It's coming from a place of like, you want to make me feel like I'm stupid and you're smarter than me. So this is the one thing that you can nitpick at to kind of insult my intelligence. It's another great example of why we need the social sciences so badly, right? And it's this idea that people who are educated and have higher education believe themselves to be so smart because they understand a lot of big words, right? But when it is time for you to teach it to somebody, when it's time to explain it to a regular person, these concepts that you know oh so well, you can't think of simple words or simple ways to explain these concepts in a way that communicates it to people correctly. And therefore, that tells me you're not as smart as you think you are. If you know 1,000,001 $5 words, but you can't communicate your 2 cents using simple language that an average person can understand, then guess what? You're not as smart as you think you are. Linguistics is not about pronunciation. It is about understanding and communication. My favorite example of this point illustrated really well, which I think is like a direct reflection of a huge problem we have in America, is on Modern Family, and how many of the jokes on Modern Family was about Gloria's accent and how she spoke so funny. And the point that both the writers on the show and then also the characters on the show will kind of bring home is this idea that Gloria's character was obviously supposed to be stupid because she didn't really speak English well, right? Because she often said words in English, in phrases in English wrong because, she didn't know it. I think this is a very serious problem in America, and it ties back to kind of like anti-immigration laws and this idea that I feel like we saw it in media first and then we saw it reflected back in real life, right? Where it is very common in the United States and it's very normal to make fun of someone's accent, right? To make fun of immigrants from all different kind of cultural backgrounds, right? For not understanding English and being arrogant enough to assume that the most important thing and the highest sign of intelligence that you can have is speaking English and speaking English properly. When like most immigrants are people who come to this country and know nothing, right? Don't know the language, don't know the culture, don't know anything. And they come here and assimilate and learn English in less than 2 years and like are fluently speaking. And maybe the grammar's not perfect, but are fluently speaking English to the point where you can understand them and they understand everything that you're saying in 2 years. How long would it take you to learn a second language? I don't remember if Gloria's character herself said it or if it was Sofia Vergara who said it in an interview, but where she said, like, you make fun of my English and you treat me like I'm an idiot, but I speak 2 languages and you speak 1. Someone who speaks 2 languages, even if one of them is not perfect, as long as it's efficient, as long as they can communicate with other people, is in fact smarter than you in your perfect English. And the fact that you don't think so, and the fact that you think that knowing English perfectly is a sign of intelligence, is a reflection of white supremacy. And instead of treating somebody who doesn't speak English that well like they're fucking idiots, you should ask yourself, how come everywhere else in the world it's the norm that children will learn 1 or 2 different languages, and just in America, only English? Like, with the exceptions of people who grew up in neighborhoods that were extremely diverse and spent a lot of time with their neighbors, the average American only learned to speak the 1 language, even though we are one of the most diverse countries in the entire world. And you don't think that's weird? If this was the melting pot in the way that it's been sold to us for forever, wouldn't it be the norm for you to adapt other people's cultures, for you to learn 2 or 3 languages growing up? It never even occurred to you to stop and think why white supremacy would want to limit and discourage your ability to be able to learn and communicate with others because you're too busy feeling superior because your grammar is a little bit better than this other person.